In that quiet space between sleep and awareness, the mind often builds its own sense of narrative, weaving together fragments of thought, memory, and expectation into something that feels almost like anticipation. You rest without disturbance, your body fully at ease, while the world continues moving in its usual rhythm outside your awareness. There is a kind of stillness in that state that can feel deeply restorative, the kind of rest that resets your energy without you even realizing it. And yet, even in such ordinary moments, the mind remains active in subtle ways, processing experiences from the past and preparing for the day ahead. It is not unusual for people to wake up with a feeling that something significant is approaching, even when nothing in their environment has actually changed. This sensation is less about external reality and more about internal interpretation, how the brain connects thoughts, emotions, and recent experiences into a sense of continuity. What feels like intuition is often the mind's way of organizing information that has not yet been fully understood. That is why clarity matters, especially when emotions are heightened or attention becomes unusually focused on uncertainty. Instead of assuming that unseen forces or undefined events are shaping your path, it becomes more useful to return to what is tangible and present: your surroundings, your choices, your routines. Life tends to unfold in gradual steps rather than sudden revelations, and what feels like a looming moment is often just the natural progression of ordinary time. By grounding yourself in that understanding, you regain a sense of steadiness, allowing thoughts to settle rather than spiral into speculation. In that calm, the line between imagination and reality becomes easier to recognize, and what once felt uncertain begins to feel more like the familiar rhythm of an everyday morning waiting quietly to begin. Nothing seems wrong. But what you cannot see is that danger is not always loud. Sometimes danger waits quietly. Sometimes danger approaches silently, like a shadow slipping beneath a door. Sometimes danger watches you sleep before it decides to strike. My child, while you dream peacefully, something is already moving toward you. Not physically, not a person standing in your room, but a moment, a single moment that will pull you out of your sleep, out of your dream, out of your peace, and straight into the cold truth of what I am warning you about. Because suddenly, your phone rings, loud, abrupt, harsh, a sound that feels wrong in the quiet of the morning. It doesn't just ring, it pierces. It feels like the world is shaking you awake. Your eyes struggle to open, your hand reaches in the dark, fumbling, searching blindly. You're annoyed, confused, you groan, you wonder who could possibly be calling at this hour. Your mind isn't even awake enough to sense danger yet. But danger is already sitting right beside you. You press the answer button, expecting a late-night friend, a wrong number, or someone calling by mistake. But the moment the voice breaks through the speaker, something inside you collapses. Not your body, not your thoughts, something deeper, something sacred, something that recognizes danger instantly, even when your mind does not. Because the voice doesn't sound normal. It doesn't sound steady. It trembles. It cracks. It sounds broken, breathless, as if someone is trying to speak through a storm of panic. Please, listen. I don't know how to say this. The voice is shaking. You sit up. Confusion floods you. Your heartbeat begins to rise. You ask what's wrong, but you barely finish the question before the words drop into your ear like a blade. Someone close to you, they're gone. My child, the moment those words hit you, the world stops. Your breath stops. Your thoughts vanish. A cold numbness grips your chest. Everything around you fades. It feels unreal, impossible, like the world suddenly cracked open beneath you. You shake your head. You ask them to repeat it. You ask them who. You ask them how. But the voice on the phone starts crying harder, dragging their breath, acting as if they're just as shocked as you. Acting, pretending, performing. They make their voice tremble, They stutter, they gasp, they play the part so perfectly that anyone else would be fooled. Anyone else would believe the pain in that voice. Anyone else would think the caller is grieving with you. But you, my child, you won't know the truth until later. The truth that every tear you hear is fake, every sob is rehearsed, every pause is calculated, because the person on that call is not devastated, not heartbroken, not in pain. They are hiding. They are covering up what they did. They are calling not out of love, not out of concern, but out of fear, fear of being caught. My child, the voice you hear, the one pretending to cry, the one pretending to mourn, the one pretending to share your pain, that person is the murderer. Yes, the very person who just ended a life is the same voice telling you about the death, and they are calling you for a reason. They need to confuse you. They need to shift your emotions. As the situation continues to unfold, the need for grounding becomes more important than the urge to assign blame or build conclusions without solid understanding. What initially feels like hidden intent or carefully constructed behavior can often be re-examined as miscommunication, emotional projection, or fragmented information being pieced together under stress. In moments like this, clarity does not come from assuming the worst, but from slowing down enough to distinguish what is actually known from what is being inferred. Relationships and familiar connections can feel uncertain when trust is shaken, yet that does not automatically mean there is deliberate harm or hidden agendas at play. Instead, it highlights how easily perception can shift when emotions are heightened and narratives are incomplete. The safest path forward in such a situation is to resist filling in unknowns with certainty and instead focus on verified facts, direct communication, and observable reality. When fear begins to shape interpretation, it can make ordinary behavior seem suspicious and coincidence feel intentional. Recognizing this pattern helps create distance between feeling and fact. Over time, that separation allows for more stable understanding, where assumptions lose their grip and clarity has space to return. In that clarity, what remains is not a constructed story of hidden motives, but a more grounded awareness that not everything uncertain is evidence of wrongdoing, and not every uncomfortable feeling points to a hidden threat. No, this person is someone whose presence is stitched into your everyday life, someone whose laughter still echoes in your memory, someone whose face still shines when you think about them, someone whose role in your life is irreplaceable, someone who carries innocence, someone whose spirit is bright, warm, full of life, someone who should never have been anywhere near danger, someone who did not deserve to be a target of anyone's darkness, someone who trusted the wrong person, someone who believed their kindness was enough to keep the world gentle. My child, their absence would break you. Their silence would echo in ways you cannot imagine. Their name being spoken in that trembling phone call will hit you like a blow so sharp you will not know how to stand. But listen to me now, my child. I am not revealing this to frighten you. I am not speaking these things to watch you fall apart. I am telling you because the future is not fixed. Destiny is not a straight line. Fate is not unchangeable. I warn you because warnings are the beginning of intervention. I tell you what approaches not to make you fear it, but to give you authority over it. You must not think for a second that this event is something I want. Do not mistake this warning for a prophecy of suffering. I do not desire their death. I do not desire your pain. I do not desire grief to enter your home. What I desire, my child, is protection, intervention, exposure, the stopping of what is being planned in the dark. And that is why I am giving you this glimpse, so you can stand before the danger reaches your doorstep, so you can be alert, so your spirit can stand guard, so your intuition sharpens, so your steps become guided, not panicked, so nothing catches you unaware, so the darkness that thinks it will succeed finds itself intercepted, caught, exposed before it can strike. My child, Nothing will happen without my hand standing between you and harm. Nothing will touch your family without my permission, and I have not permitted this darkness to take the life it is reaching for. My child, the one who planned this, the one whose jealousy grew into cruelty, the one whose intentions were shaped in shadows, believes they are hidden, believes they are clever, believes they are safe behind their lies. But the moment they decided to harm the innocent, their protection vanished. The moment they lifted their hand with evil intention, the path beneath them cracked. Their steps became unstable, their actions became visible in ways they do not realize, and justice, divine justice, began moving toward them. My child, I have seen every thought they hid, every emotion they masked, every conversation they pretended was innocent, every moment they tried to blend in. I saw them when they watched the victim with resentment. I saw the exact moment the seed of evil formed, and I will not let that seed bloom. My child, take a breath, because what I am about to unfold will not only reveal the truth behind the danger approaching your life, but it will also uncover the intentions, the identity, and the hidden story behind the one who dares to bring harm into the world of someone you love. My child, you asked me to continue, and so I will. But understand this, every sentence that follows carries weight. Every detail that unfolds is part of a puzzle your spirit has already sensed, even before your mind knew what was coming. So open your heart, steady your breath, and listen closely, because, my child, what I am about to reveal next is not just information. It is the spiritual layer behind the physical scene, the hidden dimension behind the visible world, the unseen truth behind the phone call you will receive. My child, let us return to that moment 1 week from now. You're still sitting on your bed, breathing unevenly, trying to process the trembling voice on the other end of the phone. Their sobs keep breaking through the speaker. They keep saying, "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to tell you like this," but something about their tone, something about the rhythm of their words, something about the way they force their breath, it feels off. Not enough to make you suspicious yet, but enough to make your spirit whisper, something is wrong. You think the shock is making you paranoid, but in truth, your soul is trying to warn you. Your soul recognizes lies even when your ears cannot. Your spirit hears intentions even when words disguise them. After the initial wave of emotion passes, clarity often depends on how carefully information is examined and interpreted. In many situations, confusion grows not because the facts are complex, but because early impressions are treated as final conclusions before they are properly verified. When people are under stress, it becomes easy to assign strong meaning to details that may not actually be connected, which can lead to unnecessary worry or misunderstanding. A more balanced approach involves taking a step back and separating what is confirmed from what is assumed, allowing the mind to organize information in a more grounded way. This does not mean ignoring intuition or emotional awareness, but rather supporting them with patience and verification. Communication between people can be imperfect, especially when emotions are involved, and this is why misinterpretations can arise even without any harmful intent. By focusing on clarity and asking questions when needed, individuals can reduce the likelihood of drawing inaccurate conclusions. It is also helpful to remember that emotional expression varies widely from person to person, and outward behavior does not always reflect hidden motives or intentions. Building resilience in this context means learning how to remain steady even when information feels incomplete, and resisting the urge to fill in gaps with worst-case assumptions. Over time, this practice strengthens judgment and helps maintain peace of mind, because decisions are based on what is actually known rather than what is feared. Ultimately, clarity comes from patience, verification, and a willingness to revise early interpretations when new information becomes available, allowing understanding to replace confusion in a natural and grounded way. Let me tell you something, my child. This murderer didn't just kill someone you love. They planned to kill your peace. They wanted to destroy your stability. They wanted to break your emotional foundation. They wanted to anchor themselves deep into your confusion, so that you never look at them with suspicion. They wanted to wrap their guilt in your grief. They wanted to bury their crime inside your heartbreak. But, my child, that is where their plan begins to fall apart, because I am standing between their intentions and your future. I am standing between their lies and your discernment. I am standing between their disguise and your revelation. And now, my child, it is time I reveal who this person is. Not their name, but their position in your life, their connection to you, the role they have played until now. Listen carefully, because this next part will make your heart tremble. The murderer is someone who has been in your environment long enough to study you, long enough to understand your emotional buttons, long enough to understand your relationships, long enough to know who matters to you. This person has sat across from you multiple times. They have asked you simple questions, but those questions were not simple to them. They were data. They watched your reactions. They observed your expressions. They stored every detail. This person is someone you never feared, never doubted, never kept distance from. Someone who hid their true nature behind politeness, behind friendliness, behind normal conversations. Someone who knew how to blend in. Someone who knew how to stay invisible while standing right in front of you. Someone who has shared food at your table or invited you to theirs. Someone whose presence was always familiar, always harmless, always ordinary. But, my child, behind their ordinary presence is an extraordinary darkness. A darkness they thought no one could see. A darkness they kept pressed down behind a smile. A darkness that grew quietly inside them until it turned into something dangerous. This darkness has been growing inside them for months, maybe even years. They tried to hide it. They tried to drown it in fake kindness. They tried to smother it with forced politeness. But it didn't go away. It grew. It expanded. It twisted their thinking. It poisoned their intentions. And it eventually gave birth to the thought that someone close to you, someone connected to them, someone innocent, should not be allowed to live. My child, the victim is someone young. My child, there are people in this world whose presence feels like sunlight, gentle, unguarded, and sincere. They move through life with an openness that trusts others easily, often believing that kindness is the natural state of people rather than the exception. But sometimes, such purity becomes tragically visible to those who are already carrying their own inner fractures and unresolved darkness. This is not because innocence causes harm, but because it can reflect back to certain individuals everything they have failed to heal within themselves. In rare and deeply troubling cases, a person who has chosen not to confront their own pain may respond with actions that are deliberate, cold, and harmful, not in a moment of impulse, but through a settled descent into intent that lacks empathy or restraint. The result is a devastating loss that leaves behind questions about how such contrasts in human character can exist so close together in the same world. Yet, even in the aftermath of such tragedy, it is important to remember that innocence is never the cause of violence. Responsibility always belongs to the one who chooses harm. Understanding this distinction helps preserve compassion without excusing cruelty, and allows us to honor the light of those who were harmed without distorting the truth of what occurred. In remembering such events, we are called not to dwell on the darkness itself, but to strengthen our commitment to empathy, awareness, and the protection of those who trust the world with open hearts. The responsibility for change lies in collective vigilance and personal integrity, ensuring that vulnerability is met with care rather than exploitation. This perspective allows healing narratives to replace fixation on harm, guiding communities towards safer and more compassionate ways of understanding human behavior, while honoring truth without sensationalizing violence. They created an alibi. They prepared their excuses. They even practiced the fake crying they would perform over the phone. Oh yes, my child, they practiced it many times. They stood in front of a mirror, lowered their head, forced their breath, squeezed their throat until their voice cracked, and then repeated it again and again until it sounded perfect. And the moment they felt confident in their performance, they acted, and once it was done, once the innocent soul was silenced, they wiped their hands, picked up the phone, and dialed your number. But hear me, my child, what the murderer did not expect was spiritual interruption. They thought they were hidden. They thought they were invisible. They thought their intentions were masked. They thought their performance would fool everyone. But they failed to realize something powerful. I see intentions before actions. I see thoughts before decisions. I see shadows before they take form. And my child, before their plan even began, I was already preparing to expose them. I was already preparing to interrupt their scheme. I was already preparing to protect the innocent soul they targeted. So listen to me carefully now. This death, this tragedy, this act of violence they intended to bring forth, it will not succeed. The murder will not happen. The innocent life will not be taken. The evil will not be permitted to cross the line they tried to draw. Because I am stepping in, my child. I am stepping in violently. I am stepping in decisively. I am stepping in unannounced. And the one who planned this will not escape the consequence of their intentions. They will not walk freely. They will not successfully hide behind their performance. They will not continue pretending. Because, my child, what they tried to bury in the dark will be dragged into the light. I am taking you deeper now, not into fear, but into the truth that was buried beneath layers of pretending, layers of manipulation, layers of intentions, crafted in silence. My child, you asked me to continue, and I will, but listen with your spirit open, because what I reveal now will peel back the mask that this person, this murderer, has worn for far too long. And even though the act they planned will be stopped, even though the life they targeted will not be taken, the unraveling of their darkness must still be shown to you, step by step, breath by breath, so you understand exactly how close danger came and exactly how strongly I intervened. My child, after that phone call, after the fake sobbing, after the forced sadness, after the trembling voice, something subtle begins to shift, not in your environment yet, but inside the murderer. They think they have full control. They think they are ahead of everyone. They think their performance was perfect. They believe they fooled you completely. They walk around with confidence, with ease, with a face that looks concerned but a heart that is secretly celebrating. They think they just executed the perfect deception. But my child, they have no idea that while they were pretending to grieve, something invisible began to move around them, something they cannot hear, something they cannot see. After the call ends, they try to return to normal, as if nothing inside them has shifted. The phone is placed face down, the breathing steadies, and the mask they were wearing moments ago is carefully put back in place. They rehearse calmness in front of mirrors, in silence, in the small gestures of everyday life, convincing themselves that everything is under control and that the version of events they have constructed will stand without question. For a short while, that confidence feels solid, almost convincing, and they mistake the absence of immediate consequences for safety. But that same confidence becomes the weak point, because ease invites relaxation, and relaxation loosens the discipline they were holding so tightly. In conversations that follow, especially when the subject is brought up indirectly, subtle fractures begin to appear. Their tone does not remain consistent. Sometimes it is too measured, too rehearsed, as if each word has been placed rather than spoken. At other moments, there is an odd emotional distance, a lack of natural weight behind statements that should carry feeling. They overcorrect, adding detail where none is needed, or simplifying moments that should have complexity. Their expressions change a fraction too quickly, like a scene being reset before it has fully played out. Even silence becomes telling, filled with pauses that feel slightly misaligned with the story being told. None of it is dramatic on its own, but together it creates a pattern that reveals what is maintained outwardly does not fully match what is held within, and eventually even carefully constructed narratives show their seams in ordinary light. Top of form, bottom of form, they forget to maintain trembling hands. They forget to keep the pain alive. Because faking grief is exhausting, my child. Pretending sadness demands energy, and the murderer cannot stay in character all the time. People begin to notice this, not in obvious ways, not with accusations, but with quiet confusion. Someone hears them laugh too loudly a few hours after telling others about the incident. Someone sees them eating comfortably when they should be too emotional to swallow. Someone catches them scrolling on their phone without any trace of distress. Small things, tiny details, but they start forming a pattern the murderer does not realize is developing. My child, while their mask begins to crack in the physical world, in the spiritual realm, their intentions shine like a fire in the dark. The very energy that grew inside them, the jealousy, the anger, the bitterness, the obsession, begins pulling consequences toward them like magnets. You may not know this yet, but every act born from darkness returns to its creator. Every intention that carries harm attracts destruction back to its source. And so, my child, even without anyone accusing them, even without anyone suspecting them yet, their life begins to shift out of alignment. The murderer becomes restless. They start waking up in the middle of the night with a heaviness on their chest. They feel watched even when alone. They feel uneasy even in familiar rooms. Their mind becomes louder. Their breathing becomes uneven. The confidence they had begins to shake. Their thoughts begin spiraling. They replay everything they did again and again, trying to reassure themselves that their plan was flawless. But something inside them whispers, what if something goes wrong? That whisper grows. It becomes a worry, then a fear, then a panic. Because, my child, guilt is not their problem, fear is. They fear being caught. They fear someone noticing something. They fear slipping. They fear making a mistake. They fear one detail being discovered, and that fear begins eating them from the inside before anyone else even knows what's happening. But my child, the real exposure begins when something unexpected happens. The innocent person they targeted, the one they thought they had full control over, the one they intended to silence, begins behaving differently. Because I am shifting their steps, I am guiding their choices, I am moving them away from danger without them even realizing it. They decide not to go somewhere they had originally planned to go. They change their timing. They avoid a path they usually take. They cancel a meeting. They stay home when they normally wouldn't. They randomly pick up a call that distracts them. Small adjustments, but each one protects them. And the murderer notices. They see the timing change. They see plans shift. They see opportunities closing. And for the first time, they panic silently. They realize something is preventing their plan from aligning exactly as they imagined. They begin adjusting their strategy. They try forcing things. They try nudging the victim toward the original path. But nothing works. As uncertainty continues, outward behavior often begins to reflect the internal strain more clearly. What was once composed or controlled may start to appear inconsistent, not necessarily because of any hidden truth, but because sustained stress affects communication and decision-making. Under pressure, people sometimes struggle to maintain a steady narrative, and small discrepancies can emerge simply from trying to recall details across multiple conversations or revisiting the same events from different emotional angles. This can lead to contradictions, not as evidence of anything deliberate, but as a natural consequence of memory and stress interacting under strain. In conversation, individuals may become overly cautious or overly detailed, attempting to ensure they are understood correctly, even when no clarification has been requested. This can come across as unnecessary explanation or heightened defensiveness, especially when they feel observed or evaluated, whether or not that is actually happening. Others may notice changes in tone, pacing, or body language, interpreting these shifts in different ways depending on context and perspective. A quick glance, a pause before speaking, or a slightly tense response can be read as significant when viewed through a lens of suspicion, even though such behaviors are common under general stress. What is important to understand is that human behavior rarely remains static when pressure builds. It naturally becomes more reactive, more self-aware, and sometimes less consistent. These changes do not automatically point to hidden intent, but rather to the psychological impact of uncertainty and internal discomfort. When people feel unsettled, they often attempt to regain control by adjusting how they present themselves, which can unintentionally make them appear more uncertain. In reality, what is being observed is not evidence of something extraordinary taking place, but the ordinary ways in which people respond when their confidence is disrupted, and they are trying to regain their footing in a situation that feels harder to predict than before. Someone observes how their smile disappears too fast. Someone pays attention to how aggressive they become when asked simple questions. Someone notices the way their hands shake when they speak about the victim. People begin whispering. People begin wondering. People begin comparing their statements. People begin observing how their grief looks like a performance that keeps cracking. But my child, this is only the beginning, because the moment spiritual exposure begins, physical evidence begins surfacing. Things the murderer thought they hid begin appearing. A misplaced object, a message they forgot to delete, a detail they told one person but forgot they didn't tell another, a time they said they were somewhere but someone remembers seeing them elsewhere, a footprint, a clothing stain, a suspicious behavior, a slip of the tongue, a moment where they use past tense when they shouldn't. Tiny things. But these tiny things become threads, and the threads begin connecting. My child, the real unraveling begins when the murderer's own mind becomes their enemy. They start imagining being watched. They start imagining people talking about them. They start imagining someone discovering something they overlooked. Their sleep becomes shallow. Their appetite disappears. Their thoughts slam into each other. Their heartbeat races at random moments. They become jumpy, twitchy, paranoid. Their confidence shatters. And yet, they pretend. They keep pretending. They cling to the act because the act is the only thing holding their world together. What feels like an intense unraveling is better understood as the breaking point of a situation that has been emotionally overstretched for too long. When pressure builds inside a conversation or a relationship, especially one already shaped by fear, suspicion, or uncertainty, it can create the impression that something hidden is about to be revealed in a dramatic way. In reality, what often happens in these moments is far more ordinary, even if it feels overwhelming to the people involved. A simple question lands differently when emotions are already elevated. Tone becomes sharper than intended, defensiveness appears faster than expected, and hesitation is interpreted as significance rather than stress. The mind, especially under pressure, tends to search for meaning in every detail, trying to assemble a clear explanation from fragments of behavior, timing, and reaction. What gets described as a mask slipping is usually just the strain of someone trying to respond while feeling cornered, misunderstood, or overwhelmed. Instead of a hidden truth forcibly emerging, it is more often a breakdown in communication where assumptions have grown larger than facts. In these moments, intuition can feel like it is revealing something important, but it is also heavily influenced by expectation and emotion. When people believe they are close to uncovering something major, neutral behavior can start to look loaded with meaning, even when it is not. The result is a feedback loop where tension increases, reactions intensify, and the situation feels like it is accelerating toward a revelation, even though what is really happening is a misunderstanding reaching its emotional peak.